Now, let's talk shipping. As you do, we're going to get the inside track on the industry, which is under pressure like never before. From a global perspective, overcapacity is squeezing profits. But in the UK, the impending departure from the European Union means a lot more in terms of challenges ahead.
And it's big business. In 2015, more than 80% of all the world's goods were moved by sea at some point. It's also an important industry for the British economy. Government figures suggest the maritime sector is worth about $14 billion a year to the country.
But Brexit does pose a lot of questions about customs controls. We've touched on it to a degree already in the programme, which could cause major headaches for people and businesses trying to move stuff across borders, not to mention human beings. Also, of course, the falling number of seafarers doesn't help. That's people who work at sea, and it'll be crucial as the UK seeks to broker new international trade deals.
Well, we're joined now by Guy Platten, Chief Executive of the UK Chamber of Shipping. Guy, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Now, just briefly, give us a bit of a background of who you are and how you got into shipping.
Well, I finished my A-levels and ran away to sea, really, in a romantic style. So I became a master mariner, so did some time at sea, then came ashore, looked after lifeboat stations and lifeboat crews for a while, salvaged some ships, and then got into the management, and most recently now this job here with shipping.
And that is the normal process, isn't it, for those who go into this kind of career?
Absolutely,
is that right?
yes. So, typically, someone going away to sea will spend a period of their career at sea, serving on board ships, and then they will come ashore to fill a variety of jobs. It could be in shipping offices as technical sort of superintendents, could be in sort of government, could be in our regulator, could be as lawyers, or in any number of shipbroking or other type of careers as well.
And in terms of recruitment, that's something that you're quite concerned about at the moment. There's about 800 people a year training?
Yes, we've got about 800 young people start their careers in the Merchant Navy as trainee officers, or cadets as we call them. And what we'd like to see is that number increase by at least 50% and hopefully double it as well. We need that throughput of people to actually man those shipping offices, to man the regulator and all these type of things further down the line. And it takes about 10 years to get to that position, so we need to start training the people now in order to fulfil those jobs in the future.
And there's a bit of a recruitment crisis because of the cost. It's the industry that's bearing the cost of seeing the new young young wannabes come through.
That's right. Well, so at the moment, about 2/3 of the cost of training is borne by the sponsoring companies, and about 1/3 there is some support from government. It's called SMART funding, support for maritime training. And that ratio, it used to be 50% and now has dropped down to about 1/3. And what is that's a disincentive to train more than they could. And I know that a lot of companies would train and source a lot more UK cadets if that cost could fall. Shipping is international, and they can source people from all over the world, some highly trained people. So to us, it's a priority to try and reduce some of that burden to companies, and in return they'll offer good careers for the young people coming through.
Now, earlier in the programme we were speaking to John Mills. Now, he's a businessman, a Labour donor, but he says he voted for the Leave campaign. He's also chairman of a big consumer goods company. Now, he was arguing that when it comes to Brexit, customs, trade, issues at borders are all things that we should be able to get around. It should not cause excessive disruption if the UK leaves the single market. What's your experience?
The concern for us is not so much on the container, the sort of the load-on, load-off type market, because things can be sorted. We have a concern about the processing of all they have a chief system, it's called now, for processing customs declarations. Those sort of volumes are going to vastly increase once we come out of the customs union, so that needs to be upgraded, and some concerns there because the new IT system we're developing won't come in line until early 2019. But our real concern is on the roll-on, roll-off sector. At the moment, lorries turn up at the ferry ports, they go on board the ferries, they come across and straight onto the road network, whether it be in the UK or whether it be in Europe. Any barrier to that through a hard customs border will be it will be catastrophic, really, in terms of the infrastructure of the ports, and also, in some terms of the business model of the ferry companies as well, because every small delay in a lorry getting through is Operation Stack will be a permanent feature on the M20.
Operation Stack being a road in the UK, the M20, a motorway that was literally standing, wasn't it, for miles, lorries stuck, not able to move across through to France. But just explain, the daily movement at Dover just on its own
Yeah.
is huge in terms of EU traffic. 7,500 vehicles a day, is that correct?
That's correct. So it's about 8,000 vehicles in total, and it does peak sometimes. I think sometime in November it was over 10,000, but it's about 7,500 EU vehicles and about 500 non-EU vehicles. And I think that's where our concern is, because the non-EU vehicles on average takes about 20 minutes to clear to the customs. Now, you know, things can be improved, things can be smooth, you know, and made more efficient, but even so, any delay, if you can imagine, with 8,000 vehicles passing through, will be absolutely, you know, really difficult for the ports and for the ferry companies to manage. They're just the physical constraints, the physical size of the
But
ports.
they'll have to
would say
find
that.
a way to manage, won't they? I mean, that
Well,
was John's argument was, well, if this is what happens, then...
I find it very difficult to see how that's going to happen, other than what's going to be a massive disruption to trade. And if you think about it, a lot of these, you know, it's just-in-time type supply chain. You've got, you know, tomatoes coming up from Spain. You know, you put delays there, and you know, you put the whole just-in-time sort of business model in jeopardy.
Okay.
Gosh,
Really interesting,
there's
Guy.
so much to think about. Guy, thanks for coming
Thank
in.
you.
Guy Platten there, who's Chief Executive of the UK Chamber of Shipping.